Hello, and welcome to today's midday meditation. I am thrilled, as always, that you are here. And as we get started, I invite you, as always, to get nice and comfortable in your seat, nice and comfortable in that structure that is supporting you. And as you get settled, you can, if it's safe for you to do so, close your eyes and just settle in. This is the beginning of our time where we break the momentum and really break the cycle of stress by just pausing and turning or tuning within. And you can take a few breaths, nice big full inhale, nice long slow exhale, and repeat that as many times as you wish as you settle in. As you settle in and just let yourself come back to this feeling of experiencing calm, grounded, at rest in this little moment of stillness. And it's in these moments where the world just seems more manageable. Things tend to be more manageable. You often hear me talk about calm being your superpower. And the reason I believe that so wholeheartedly is that within this place of calm is where our clarity and our strength, where it resides, where things become easier. And that's what I want to talk about today in our contemplation, because you may be thinking, and you wouldn't be alone in this. In fact, sometimes, I find myself coming back to it, that even when we stop moving, even when we take this moment to pause and to breathe and to close the eyes and come to stillness, our hope is for calm. But you might be still feeling that feeling of, the challenges that might be awaiting for you on the other side. The uncertainty that still exists when you go back into life. The to-do list that may still be there. But it's when we pause, when we stop, when we come back into the present moment, that somehow that next step becomes or comes more easily into our awareness. When we are calm, when we are in our superpower, we can respond rather than react because we can see more clearly. And it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice and a little bit of patience to maybe have yourself knowing that or believing that again. But let's look at the flip side of it, right? When you are not calm, when you are tired or overwhelmed, tired and overwhelmed, stretched thin, busy, worried, and maybe it's because of a certain situation or a certain time of year or a certain person in your surroundings, Or maybe it's the stress that you've been carrying for weeks or months or years. Right? When we're experiencing that or in the middle of that, things just feel harder. A delayed response by someone feels more personal. A quiet inbox feels alarming. An unexpected expense can feel catastrophic. A small problem can feel a whole lot larger than it actually is. And why? It's because of the stress. And, the stress doesn't just affect our body. Stress affects our perception. And I'll explain that a little bit more. Stress changes what we notice. It changes what we focus on. It changes what we believe. And over time, it can compromise something really important, which is our ability to discern. And I would say even in the heat of the moment, it can impact our ability to discern. So if we pause for breath, we inhale slowly, exhale completely. You can just notice how you feel today. Just notice. How do you feel today? Not yesterday. Not how you hope to feel later or tomorrow, but how you feel right now. What's present for you? What are you carrying? Can you notice the volume or the quality of the thoughts that are taking up space or energy? Now I'll expand a little bit further on this, on the ways that stress distorts our perception. The first way is through memory. Now, memory is not a bad thing. Memories help us learn. They help keep us safe, help us stay safe. Memory helps us avoid repeating painful experiences. But memory can also begin filling in blanks. They fill in, or it fills in the space between the thoughts. Memory is what we use to make sense of things or order things that are happening around us. But when we're stressed, and we've been stressed for a long time, that memory, or the stress stack, as I sometimes like to call it, that starts to carry more weight, becomes more of the feeling, more of it creates more of the feeling of the experience and the thoughts of the experience, and we start responding more based on that than what is actually happening right now. We begin to respond to what's happened before. So for example, when someone doesn't return an email, the old story might arise. Perhaps we felt overlooked before, ignored before, dismissed before, and then suddenly we're not responding to the lack of response to today's email. We're responding to all of the accumulated memories. Or perhaps an unexpected bill arrives and instantly old feelings of lack or scarcity appear, not because of the bill alone, but because the memory has connected it to another moment for you that felt uncertain. So as we sit here and pause and are in our stillness, maybe you're noticing how memory quietly colors that present moment. You might already be attaching thoughts or opinions or ideas to even what I'm stating. Notice how quickly that past lens becomes the lens through which we view today. And then take another breath. Inhale, exhale. Just notice. Just notice. It happens to all of us, the best of us. Like I said, memory is there to help us learn. It's our experience, it's our lived experience, and it does help protect us. So we don't need to judge it. We simply need to understand or observe, notice that it's there and how it's working. Now, the second thing that can distort our perception is momentum. Momentum is different than memory. Momentum propels us in a different way. So where memory pulls us backward, momentum pushes us forward. Momentum is the energy of habit. The nervous system is following a familiar pathway. The mind is replaying a familiar story. The body is producing a familiar response. But before we even realize what's happening, a thought appears, a feeling follows, the body tightens, and the story starts to take hold. And then suddenly we're down this familiar path, not always because we've chosen it. It's because we've traveled it so many times before. That's the momentum carrying us, pulling us forward. And in yoga and Ayurveda, we call these patterns the samskaras. They're grooves, impressions, the well-worn path, you might say. Habitual pathways become easy to travel each time we walk in them. That's why we fall into that groove so quickly. We often react in a particular way because it's the more normal reaction to what we're feeling. And eventually, and here's the key, eventually we assume that that well-worn path is reality, when in fact, it may simply be familiarity. So just pause for a moment and consider, what familiar path does your mind travel when you're under stress? What familiar path are you already in the momentum of today? And like memory, right, it serves, but it also can distort. So our ability to observe without judgment, just to notice, is powerful. What familiar path does your mind travel when you're under stress? Where does your momentum tend to carry you? Maybe it's toward worry, self-criticism, toward scarcity, urgency. Maybe it carries you to working faster, making lists, doing more, following the crowd, working harder, hustling. I know it's no laughing matter, but I want you to simply notice, not judgment, just awareness. Just awareness. And so there's memory and there's momentum, and both can impact our ability to really discern what's happening, what's actually happening in the present moment, or what actually needs your attention in the present moment. And I like to equate or use an analogy here to really kind of bring this home for you. But as you're here and pausing and in stillness, I want you to imagine or just contemplate. One day you're getting ready for work, you're on your way out the door, you open the door, and lo and behold, there is a tiger standing outside, a real tiger, snarling, hungry, surprised, defensive tiger standing at your door. What do? Well, without your even thinking, right, your instincts take over. Your fight or flight, right, has you slamming the door, right? You slam the door, your nervous system prepares you for survival. Your body prepares you for survival. And in that case, that response is completely appropriate. The tiger's real. The threat is real. Your response is necessary. But what happens the next day? You approach that door a little more cautiously. You remember the tiger. And even before you're at the door, you're already alert, right? You're already cautious. You're already preparing yourself. You might just open the door crack and peek around the corner. You're scanning for danger, right? And again, that all makes sense. You've had that experience. Your memory is keeping you safe. Now, what happens on the third day, or the 5th, or the 10th, or the 30th? Eventually, even a shadow under the door has you in that heightened awareness. It has you prepared, right? That shadow under the door looks threatening. Every sound becomes suspicious. Every movement catches your attention. You begin living as though there is always a tiger under your door. And at some point between day 1 and day 30, or whatever that day is, right? At some point, something important begins to happen. You're no longer responding to the tiger. You're responding to the memory of the tiger. And you're responding to the momentum of the response. The body remains prepared. The mind remains vigilant, even when there's a tiger, when there isn't a tiger there. Right? And that's where discernment becomes compromised, because eventually you can't tell whether the shadow under the door is a tiger or maybe it's a bunny rabbit. Your perception's distorted. And not because you're doing something wrong, but because that prolonged stress has trained your nervous system to look for the danger. So what do we do instead? Like we're doing here, we pause, we breathe, and then just become curious. In the present moment, ask a simple question of yourself. What do I actually know to be true right now? Right now. What is true? What is true right now? Not what happened before. Not what I'm worried about is going to happen next, but what is actually true in this moment. And then what evidence do I have that that is true? How do I know that that is true? What evidence do I have? What assumptions am I making? What if I opened the door and took a peek, took a fresh look? Can I see this moment without yesterday's tiger standing before me? What do fresh eyes, fresh perspective, what does it tell us? So take a big full breath, big inhale, long slow exhale. And as you move through the rest of your day, notice your tigers. Notice the stories or the memories. Notice the momentum. And when you do, gently return to the present moment. Because this is where clarity lives. Discernment lives here. And from this place, we often discover that what looked like a tiger may simply have been a bunny all along. And as you settle here and as we conclude today's midday meditation, I invite you to stay in this present moment for as long as you can. Linger here. Breathe, pause, be in stillness. And until next time, I thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope the rest of your day is calm, clear, grounded. Namaste.